Have you ever heard that inflation is a certain number, 2%, 3%, maybe even higher, and immediately thought, that doesn't feel right to me? If the official inflation rate sounds disconnected from what you're actually paying for everyday essentials, you are absolutely not alone in that feeling. This common disconnect can be frustrating, making it hard to trust economic reports or plan your personal finances effectively. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on how inflation is measured, specifically focusing on the Consumer Price Index, CPI. We'll explore why your personal experience might diverge from the headline numbers and how understanding this process can empower you to make smarter financial decisions. This isn't about discrediting the data. It's about gaining a deeper understanding of what these crucial economic indicators truly represent and how they impact your wallet. Inflation numbers are reported constantly, dominating headlines and influencing major economic decisions. These figures play a critical role in setting interest rates, shaping government policies, and even determining wage negotiations. They are the pulse check of our economy, guiding everything from investment strategies to retirement planning. However, for many individuals, especially young adults just starting their financial journeys or families managing tight budgets, those official numbers often don't seem to match real life. The cost of groceries, the relentless rise in rent, or the increasing price of car insurance can feel much more expensive than the reported data suggests. This creates a tension between what the statistics say and what your bank account experiences, leading to confusion and sometimes even distrust. This video aims to bridge that gap. By the end, you'll understand the components that contribute to the official inflation number, what it effectively captures, and what it inherently misses. This knowledge will help you interpret economic news with a more critical eye, allowing you to better navigate your personal financial landscape. It's about gaining economic literacy, not just accepting numbers at face value. Let's start with the fundamental building block of inflation measurement, the Consumer Price Index, or CPI for short. At its core, the CPI is designed to track the average change over time in the prices paid by urban consumers for a basket of consumer goods and services. Think of it as a standardized shopping list that economists use to measure how prices evolve from one month or year to the next. It's like a thermometer for the economy, indicating whether prices are generally heating up or cooling down. The CPI is calculated by government agencies, such as the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, in the United States. They collect price data on thousands of items from various retail outlets and service providers across the country. This massive data collection effort ensures a comprehensive snapshot of price changes. The purpose of the CPI is not to reflect any single individual's spending habits, but rather to provide a broad, aggregate measure of price changes for the typical urban consumer. It's a vital tool for policymakers, businesses, and economists to understand general price trends and their impact on purchasing power. Understanding the CPI is a cornerstone of personal finance and economic literacy. When you hear about inflation, it's usually the CPI being referenced. Knowing how it's constructed helps you interpret news reports, understand why interest rates might change, and even anticipate how your own purchasing power might be affected. It's a powerful piece of information that helps you make more informed decisions about saving, spending, and investing. The concept of a fixed basket of goods and services is central to the CPI, but it's also a major source of the disconnect you might feel. Imagine this basket contains a wide array of items: food and beverages, housing, rent or owner's equivalent rent, apparel, transportation, medical care, recreation, education, communication, and other goods and services. Each category is assigned a weight based on how much the average urban consumer spends on it. For instance, housing typically has the largest weight because it represents the biggest expense for most households. This average basket is where the illusion begins. Consider two individuals, you and your neighbor. You might spend a larger portion of your income on groceries and rent, perhaps because you have a growing family or live in a high cost of living area. Your neighbor, on the other hand, might spend more on travel, entertainment, and the latest electronics. Even if the overall average price level rises by, say, 3%, your personal inflation rate could feel much higher if the specific items you spend most on, like food and housing, have increased by 8% or 10%. The official inflation number is precisely that, an average. It reflects a broad, aggregated basket of goods and services, not the unique spending patterns or financial realities of any single household. This is a crucial distinction for personal finance. Your individual budget is not an average budget. If the items that dominate your personal spending, your personal basket, are experiencing price increases above the national average, then your lived experience of inflation will naturally feel more severe than the reported headline number. This doesn't mean the data is flawed. It simply means it's answering a different question than how much more expensive is my life? This is precisely where the frustration often comes in. People don't experience inflation as a statistical average. They experience it directly through the prices they pay most often for the things they need most. If the cost of your weekly grocery run jumps significantly, or your rent increases by hundreds of dollars, those immediate and substantial changes overshadow any reported average. These are the tangible impacts that hit your budget directly and immediately. If the things you spend the most money on, like housing, food, or childcare, rise faster than the overall average, then inflation will undoubtedly feel much worse than what the official reports suggest. For students, tuition and textbook costs might be their primary concern. For young families, it could be childcare and housing. These specific high-impact expenses can skew your personal perception of inflation dramatically. The CPI is designed to measure broad economic trends, not the specific financial pressures on your household. This doesn't mean the data is lying or intentionally misleading. It simply means that the CPI is designed to answer a specific question. What is the average change in prices for a representative basket of goods and services across the economy? It is not designed to answer, how much more expensive is your specific life, given your unique spending habits and income? Once you grasp this fundamental difference in purpose, the perceived disconnect between official numbers and your personal experience begins to make a lot more sense. It's a matter of understanding the scope and limitations of the measurement. There's another layer to why inflation numbers can feel disconnected from your reality: the concepts of substitution and quality adjustments. Inflation measurements often account for the idea that consumers are rational and will adjust their spending habits when prices change. This is known as the substitution effect. For example, if the price of beef skyrockets, the CPI methodology assumes that some consumers will substitute it with a cheaper alternative, like chicken or pork. From a purely statistical standpoint, this makes sense. It reflects how people actually behave in the face of rising costs. If a particular item becomes unaffordable, consumers will naturally seek out alternatives, and over time, that item might carry less weight in the overall index. However, emotionally and practically, this can feel like moving the goalposts. If you prefer beef and are forced to buy chicken due to price, your quality of life or satisfaction might decrease, even if your overall spending on meat remains stable. The CPI might show a lower inflation rate because of this substitution, but your personal experience might feel like a loss of choice or a reduction in your standard of living. Furthermore, the CPI also attempts to account for quality adjustments. If a new smartphone costs more than its predecessor, but also offers significantly improved features, better camera, faster processor, more storage, the BLS tries to adjust for this improved quality. They might argue that you're paying more, but you're also getting a better product, so the true price increase for the same level of quality is less. While this is a sophisticated attempt to measure pure price changes, it can be difficult to quantify and often doesn't resonate with consumers who simply see a higher price tag. For many, a higher price is just a higher price, regardless of perceived quality improvements. These adjustments, while methodologically sound for economic analysis, can further widen the gap between reported inflation and your personal financial reality. The key insight to grasp is this: inflation data, particularly the CPI, is primarily designed to measure broad price trends across the entire economy. It serves as a macroeconomic indicator, helping central banks and governments understand the overall health and direction of prices. It is a useful tool for analyzing purchasing power at a national level, informing monetary policy, and adjusting Social Security benefits. However, it is not designed to be a precise mirror of financial stress at the individual household level. Your personal inflation rate, driven by your unique spending patterns, income, and geographic location, will almost certainly differ from the national average. Once you recognize this fundamental distinction, that the CPI measures economic trends, not your personal financial pressure, the perceived disconnect starts to make perfect sense. It's not that the data is wrong, it's that it's answering a different question than the one you're asking with your personal budget. This reframing offers a significant cognitive win. It allows you to move past the frustration of feeling like the numbers are wrong and instead empowers you with a more nuanced understanding. You can appreciate the value of the CPI as an economic indicator while simultaneously acknowledging that your personal financial reality might be experiencing a different and potentially more severe rate of inflation. This understanding is crucial for developing strong personal finance habits and making informed decisions about your money. It's about gaining clarity through understanding rather than dismissing valuable economic information. Going forward, this understanding helps explain why inflation headlines may not always feel personal, even when they are accurate in their broader scope. It clarifies why two people living in different circumstances or with different spending priorities can react very differently to the same reported inflation number. A retiree on a fixed income, heavily reliant on medical care and groceries, will experience inflation very differently from a young professional spending more on technology and dining out. Understanding how inflation is measured doesn't magically eliminate higher costs or make your budget stretch further. However, it does provide immense clarity. It helps you distinguish between what these numbers are, broad economic indicators, and what they are not, a precise reflection of your individual financial burden. This knowledge is a powerful tool for economic literacy. It allows you to interpret news more critically, understand the forces impacting your purchasing power, and make more strategic decisions about your personal finances. You can then focus on managing your specific expenses and finding ways to mitigate your personal inflation rate rather than feeling confused or misled by national averages. On this channel, our goal is to make complex economic language clearer and more accessible without resorting to hype or panic. We believe that understanding these fundamental concepts is key to financial empowerment for everyone, from students planning their first budget to seasoned consumers managing their investments. Now that you have a clearer picture of how inflation is measured, we want to hear from you. Is there a specific expense, like rent, groceries, transportation, or insurance, where inflation has felt most noticeable for you personally? Or is there another aspect of inflation, perhaps related to wages or savings, that you'd like us to explain next? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your insights help us tailor future content to the questions that matter most to you. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more insights into personal finance and economic literacy, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Let's continue to build our financial knowledge together.